Chapter 16. The Veiled Lady. The neighboring houses were mostly closed, their owners being out of town for the summer, but the one before which I halted was apparently occupied. Therefore I boldly ascended the steps and rang the bell. My summons was answered by a burly, ill-dressed man in carpet slippers, who, when I inquired for Mr. Ashwick, responded, "He don't live here. This is Mrs. Stentiford's." "But he did live here," I protested. "How long has he been gone?" "I don't know. I've only been here a fortnight, but I believe the mistress has lived here for 3 or 4 years." "Is your mistress in?" "No, she's away in Switzerland." "And you're taking charge of the house?" "That's so." "Well," I said, "Mr. Ashwick lived here until a short time ago, that's very certain. I feel sure I haven't mistaken the house. I used to be a visitor here. Would you mind me glancing at some of the rooms?" He eyed me with a distinct suspicion. "No," I laughed. "I'm not a swell mobsman or a burglar on the lookout for a likely house to rob. I'm a doctor." And to convince him, I took my silk hat and displayed my stethoscope in the lining, as well as giving him a card. "Well," he answered rather ill-manneredly, "I don't see why I should satisfy you. You aren't a friend of Mrs. Stentiford's?" "No," I admitted, "but I only desire a glance at the library and the bedroom upstairs, just to satisfy my curiosity." "Why?" "Well, to tell you the truth, there occurred here in this house an incident which was a crisis of my life. For that reason I am full of curiosity to see the rooms again, and I ask you as a favor to allow me to do so." "Oh, very well," he said at last after a moment's hesitation. "Come along. You say you want to see the library?" And I followed him down the hall, at the end of which he opened a door. I went in and looked around. Yes, it was the same. Nothing had apparently been moved. I looked into the dining room, that same handsome apartment in which champagne had been drunk to my health and happiness. Bah, what a mockery it had been! I went into several of the other rooms after that, and all of them, I found, were well furnished in a style rather out of date, but nevertheless comfortable. "And how long have you been in Mrs. Stentiford's service?" I inquired as we descended the stairs. "Just a fortnight." "You're a police officer, aren't you?" I inquired. "Yes, a sergeant," he answered. "But how did you know?" "Oh," I answered, laughing. "When a man's been in the police, there's little mistake about it. We doctors have our eyes open, you know." He smiled, but was apparently surprised that I should have detected his calling. "There are no other servants here, I suppose?" "No, none. Why?" "Because I'm anxious to find out whether Mrs. Stentiford has ever let her house furnished." "Don't think so." "What gives you that impression?" "Well, because before she went away, she told me that she preferred to close the place and pay me, rather than to let her things be ruined by strangers." "And I suppose you've heard from the neighbors about the house?" "Yes," he replied. "I've heard a gentleman lived here about 4 years ago. I think the name was Ashwick." "But he was living here a few weeks ago," I declared. "I visited him here." The retired police sergeant looked at me incredibly. "I think you must be mistaken. Mrs. Stentiford was certainly occupying the house then." "But you were not here?" "No, I wasn't here, that's true." "She might have let it for a few weeks during the London season?" "She certainly might," he responded. "But if she did, she kept the matter a secret, for none of the neighbors were aware of it." "Then you have already inquired?" I asked, somewhat surprised, for he spoke so positively. "Yes," he replied. "Curiously enough, a few days ago I had someone else call and ask for Mr. Ashwick." "Who was it?" I demanded quickly. "A lady, a young, rather good-looking lady." "What was she like? Describe her to me." "Well, she wore a thick white veil, so I couldn't see her face quite distinctly," the man answered. "But she, like yourself, declared that she knew Mr. Ashwick and had been a visitor here. She asked to see the very same rooms as you have seen. Very curious, isn't it?" "Very," I exclaimed in wonder. "Did she give any further explanation?" "No, she gave me half a sovereign instead," he laughed. "And she also declared that Mr. Ashwick had lived here recently?" Yes, that's what caused me to inquire. Very remarkable, I said. I wonder who she could have been. Can't you give the slightest description of her? I only noticed that she spoke in a soft, refined voice, and that she had very pretty eyes, blue-gray, I believe they were. But those thick white veils with embroidery on them make it very difficult to see a woman's face clearly. And her hair, was she fair or dark? Between colors. Fair? No, not fair and not dark. Almost chestnut color, I think it was. Was she tall? Middling. She came in a hansom, and it waited for her. She was evidently a lady. She gave no name. Oh, she was very discreet. And that's what made me scent a mystery when you called and asked for the same person and to see the same rooms. Well, it is extraordinary, I remarked. Most extraordinary. I was sorry that I had no money to give him a tip, but my last half-crown reposed in the corner of my pocket, and I could not summon courage to leave myself penniless. So I merely thanked him, and, descending the steps, left him with disappointment plainly depicted upon his face. The man might be useful, I felt. Therefore I had decided to return at an early date, when my funds were not so low, and give him a similar tip to the one he had received from the veiled lady. Who was she, I wondered? Surely it could not have been Beryl herself. By good fortune, on my return to Rowan Road, I found a letter awaiting me, and on opening it discovered that it was from a doctor practising in Bayswater, who, in reply to my application a week before, appointed me his locum tenens. Therefore, on the following day, I thanked Bob warmly for all his hospitality towards me, and bade him good-bye. "Promise me one thing, Dick," he said as he stood in the hall, holding my hand in a firm, friendly grip of farewell. "Well," I asked, "what is it?" "That you'll try and forget all about this mystery of yours," he said earnestly. "You'll be getting brain fever or something equally disagreeable if you don't try to control yourself and think no more of it. The experience is unusual, but depend upon it, the mystery is so well kept by the set of scoundrels into whose hands you fell that you'll never get to the bottom of it." "But I mean to solve it," I said resolutely. "I'm married, my dear fellow, and, well, I love her." "I know. That's just the devil of it," he answered bluntly. "You're gone on her, and the mystery makes you the more eager to claim her as your wife." "Exactly, old fellow," I answered. "I know that you're my best friend. Indeed, you have kept me out of the gutter or the common lodging-house these past weeks, and I am ready to repay you in any way in my power. But as to taking your advice in this matter, I really can't." "Then you're a fool, Dick." "I may be," I responded, "but I mean to clear up the mystery." "Because you are jealous of this young Chetwold." "I won't deny that I am jealous," I replied with perfect frankness. "But I know that Beryl is in danger, and as her husband, I should be at her side to protect her." "That's very well, but after all your exertions you've really discovered absolutely nothing." His words were, alas, only too true. I had made many discoveries, but each of them had only served to render the veil of mystery more impenetrable. "But why do you urge me to give it up?" "For your own sake," he responded. "You can't practice properly when your head is full of such a bewildering puzzle. Don't you see that in this affair your reputation is at stake?" "But her life is of greater moment to me than my own reputation," I declared. "Let me have my own way. There's a good chap." And I wished him good-bye. An hour later I became installed as temporary assistant to a surgeon in Richmond Road, Bayswater, who, having been run down by the unusual number of cases of influenza, had resolved to take a month's vacation. The Bayswater surgeon proved a genial fellow, but I saw little of him, for he left for North Wales with his family early next morning after handing me his visiting book and giving me general instructions. A fortnight went by, and so large was the practice, for I had to attend a number of the large drapery establishments on Westbourne Grove, where my principal was medical officer, that I had but little leisure. To forget the strange enigma which so troubled my brain, I had thrown myself heartily into the work. One hot, oppressive evening, after I had been in Richmond Road about 3 weeks, I was busy seeing the patients who, crowding the waiting-room between the hours of 7 and 9, entered the consultation-room one by one to describe their physical ills, when the servant came in with a card saying, "A lady wishes to see you at once, sir." I took the card she handed me, and started with mingled surprise and satisfaction when I recognized the name. Lady Pierrepoint Lane. At last she was in London again. But how, I wondered, had she discovered my whereabouts? Quickly I went into the hall, and there found her with blanched face and in a great state of agitation. "Ah, doctor!" she gasped breathlessly as I greeted her and our hands met. "I'm so glad I found you. I went to Hammersmith, but your friend Dr. Raymond told me you were here." "What's the matter?" I inquired, surprised at her eager manner. "Has anything occurred?" "Yes, something most mysterious," she answered hoarsely. "You're the only doctor whom I can trust. Will you come with me at once? I have a cabin waiting." "Where?" I inquired. "To your house?" "Yes," she urged. "Do not let us lose time. Apologize to your other patients here and come at once. It's a matter of life or death." "Of life or death?" I cried. "Who is ill?" "It's all a mystery," she answered in the same breathless manner. "But you will keep it a secret. Promise me." "I have many family secrets entrusted to me," I answered. "Rest assured that I shall betray no confidence." "Then come quickly, and recollect that what you may see or hear tonight you must never divulge, on your word of honor as a gentleman." "I give you my word of honor," I answered, wondering what fresh mystery was in store for me. Then turning, I asked a servant who stood near to tell the patients waiting for me that I had been unexpectedly called out to an urgent case and would return in an hour. "Good," her ladyship exclaimed. "Let us not lose an instant." Instinctively I placed my instrument case in my pocket and took down my hat. "Tell me the nature of the illness," I urged. "How did it occur? Who was the patient?" "How it occurred nobody knows. It is a mystery, as I tell you. My cousin Theo, to whom I think I introduced you, is dying." "Dying?" I gasped, staring at her amazed. "Here in London?" "Yes, at my house. I have called you because you are a doctor, and I can rely upon your secrecy." Chapter 17. In Peril. Without a loss of a moment we entered the hansom and drove along Bishop's Road and Westbourne Terrace, and thence across Sussex Gardens to Gloucester Square. Beside me my companion sat pale, erect, and rigid, responding only in monosyllables to my questions, and refusing to tell me anything beyond what she had already said, that her cousin was dying. Her manner was strange, as though she were in a deadly fear. I had taken her hand to assist her into the cab, and found it was cold as ice. Her face was the face of a woman haunted by some imminent terror, a white countenance with eyes dark and deep sunken. How changed she was from the bright, pleasant woman who had consulted me under such curious circumstances, when I had first taken Bob's place at Rowan Road. Could this change in her be in any way due, I thought, to the tragedy at Whitton? I recollected the singular fact that Mrs. Chetwood had omitted the name and that of Beryl from the list furnished to the police. Again I glanced at her ashen face as we rounded the corner into Gloucester Square. It was that of a woman absolutely desperate. She was trembling with fear, yet at the same time striving to preserve an outward calm. My suspicion of her increased. The hall door having been thrown open by a servant, my companion led me through into a pretty boudoir on the left, where, lying fully dressed upon a divan of yellow silk, I saw my love. Her wonderful hair had become disengaged from its fastenings and fell dishevelled about her white face, and her corsage was open at the throat as though one had felt her heart. In an instant I was at her side, and while her cousin held the shaded lamp I examined her. Her great fathomless eyes were closed, her cheeks cold, her heart motionless. Every symptom was that of death. "Is she still alive?" asked the terror-stricken woman at my elbow. I cannot decide," I answered, rising and obtaining a small mirror to test whether respiration had ceased. Hers was no ordinary faintness that I saw at once. The limbs were stiff and rigid as in death, the hands icy cold, the lips drawn and hard set, the whole body so paralyzed that the resemblance to death was exact. All the startling events of my fateful wedding day came back to me. From that white throat that lay there exposed I had taken the tiny gold charm, which now hung around my own neck, reminding me ever of her. That sweet face with the halo of gold-browned hair was the same that I had seen lying dead upon the pillow in that house of mystery in Queensgate Gardens, the one that I had bent and kissed. I took her hand again. There were rings upon it, but all were set with gems. The bond of matrimony that I had placed there was absent. For a moment I stood gazing at her, utterly confounded. But I saw that to save her life no time must be lost, therefore, rousing myself, I obtained her ladyship's assistance to unloose my loved one's corset, and then made a further examination. "This is a serious matter," I said at last. "I shall be glad if you will send a servant and a cab to Bloomsbury with a message." "To Bloomsbury? Why?" she asked. "Can you not treat her yourself?" "Not without consultation," I responded, and taking a card from my pocket, I wrote upon it an urgent message to accompany the bearer at once. She gave me an envelope, and, enclosing the card, I wrote the superscription, "Dr. Karl Hofer, 63 Museum Mansions, Bloomsbury." Her ladyship at once sent the servant on the message, and then without delay returned to my side. "Well, doctor," she asked in a low, strained voice, "what is your opinion? Will she recover?" "I cannot say," I responded mechanically, my eyes still fixed upon my patient's face, watching for any change that might occur there. At my request, her ladyship brought the brandy decanter from the living-room, and I managed, after some difficulty, to force a few drops between her cousin's lips. "Now tell me," I said firmly, turning to the agitated woman at my side, "how did this occur?" "I don't know." "If her life is to be saved, we must know the truth," I said, my eyes fixed upon her. "In this manner to prevaricate is useless. Tell me how it is that I find her in this condition of fatal collapse." "I cannot tell you of things of which I myself am ignorant," she answered with a well-feigned air of innocence. "You wish to save your cousin's life?" I inquired. "Certainly, she must not die," she cried anxiously. "Then answer my questions plainly and leave the rest entirely in my hands," I replied. "From your manner I know that you have some secret which you are striving to conceal. Knowledge of this secret will, no doubt, place me in a position to combat this extraordinary attack. If because you maintain silence she dies, then an inquest will be held, and the truth must come out, and a scandalous truth it will be." "Scandalous!" she exclaimed with some hauteur. "I don't understand." "An attempt has been made upon her life," I said as calmly as I could. "Those who are responsible for this must, if she dies, be discovered." "An attempt on her life? How do you know?" she gasped. I smiled, but made no direct answer to her question. "I am aware of it by the same means that I know that Theo Ashwick and Beryl Wynd are one and the same person." She started quickly. "Who told you that?" she asked, with a strange flash in her eyes. I smiled again, answering, "I think it would be best if you confided in me in this matter, instead of leaving me to obtain the truth for myself. Remember, you have called me here to save your cousin, and yet by her side, while her young life is slowly ebbing, we are engaged in a battle of words. Now tell me," I urged, "how did this occur?" She shook her head. "Shall I begin?" I suggested. "Shall I say that you came up with Miss Beryl from Atworth yesterday quite unexpectedly, in order to keep an appointment? That you—" "How did you know?" she gasped again. "How did you know our movements?" "I merely ask whether this is not the truth," I responded calmly. I had noticed that the furniture in the room was undusted, and therefore knew that they had returned to town unexpectedly. "Shall we advance a step further? I think, if I am not mistaken, that there was a strong reason for your return to town, and also for keeping your presence in London a secret. That is the reason that you communicated with your friend." "With whom?" "With Mrs. Chetwood." The light died from her face. She swayed slightly, and I saw that she gripped the edge of the little glass-topped table to steady herself. Then her features relaxed into a sickly smile, and she managed to stammer, "You're awfully clever, Doctor, to be aware of all these things. Is it clairvoyance, thought-reading, or what?" "Those who have secrets should be careful not to betray them," I responded ambiguously. "Then, if I have betrayed myself, perhaps you will tell me something more of equal interest." No, I answered. I have no desire to make any experiments. In this matter your cousin's life is at stake. It will be at least humane of you if you place me in possession of all the facts you know regarding the dastardly attempt upon her.
I tell you that I know nothing.
Nothing beyond what? I said very gravely. Again she was silent. I watched the inanimate body of the woman I loved, but saw no change. In what manner that state of coma had been produced I knew not, and I was in deadly fear that the last breath would leave her body before the arrival of Hofer, the great German doctor whose lectures at Guy's had first aroused within me a desire to become a medico-legist. There was, I knew, but one man in all the world who could diagnose these symptoms, and it was Hofer. I only prayed he might not be out of town. Well, I went on, it seems that you hesitate to tell me the truth because you fear I might divulge your secret. Is that so?
I believed that I might trust you to attend my cousin and preserve silence regarding her illness and her presence in London, was the haughty reply. But it seems that you are endeavouring to ascertain facts which are purely family affairs.
The doctor is always a confidant of the family, I answered.
But the doctor who is coming?
He is an old friend and will promise to keep your secret, I said. Come, tell me. She stood hesitating, erect, statuesque, her eyes fixed immovably upon me. I know you are in trouble, I added in a tone of sympathy. I am ready to assist you if you are open and straightforward with me. I have already given you my pledge of secrecy. Now tell me what has occurred. She wavered in her resolution to tell me nothing. My sympathetic tones decided her, and she said in a low, hoarse voice, "It is a mystery." "In what way?" "As you have already said, we left Atworth in order to keep an appointment here. I was entertaining a house party, but made an excuse that one of my aunts in Shettleham was dangerously ill. I left, and unknown to my husband and any other person, travelled with Beryl to London." I noted that she inadvertently used my love's proper name instead of Theo, the name by which she had introduced us. "The appointment was with Mrs. Chetwoad?" I suggested.
"Yes," she answered. "I had arranged to meet her today at 2:00.
"I have read in the newspapers reports of the terrible tragedy at Whitton. It was her husband who was murdered, was it not?"
"Yes,"
she answered in a tone rather unusual. Then she pursed her lips and held her breath for a single instant. "She has been staying with her sister in Taunton since the awful affair occurred, and came to town purposely to meet me." "I think, if I mistake not, both you and your cousin were at Whitton at the time of the tragedy?" I observed with affected carelessness.
"Oh, no, fortunately we were not," she answered quickly. "We left the day previously."
"That certainly was not the truth. At least, Beryl had been there at 4:00 in the afternoon, but I made no remark. It would not be policy to tell this woman of my visit to Whitton, and of all I had overheard and seen." "Well, and today, did your friend Mrs. Chetwoad call?" Again she hesitated, and that aroused within me a further suspicion.
"Yes," she replied. "She remained an hour, then left."
"Alone?"
"No, we went with her."
"Where?"
"To visit a friend in Cadogan Place."
"And how long did you remain?"
"About half an hour."
"Cannot you tell me the name of this friend?"
"No," she answered. "It is of no account."
"Did you or your cousin eat or drink anything today, except here in your own house?"
"Nothing. The person whom we visited offered us port wine, but neither of us accepted."
"No tea?"
"None," she answered. "We afterwards returned home, arriving about 5:00, took tea here, and dined at 6:30. An hour later, just as we had finished dinner, the servant handed Beryl a card, and she rose, excusing herself on the plea that her dressmaker had called, and saying that she would return in a moment, left me alone to finish my dessert. I waited for her return for fully 20 minutes, then went across to the morning-room. The light had been switched off, and when I turned it on, I saw to my horror that she was lying full length on the floor, apparently dead. We carried her here, and then I at once went in search of you."
"And is that all you know?" I inquired rather incredulously.
"Everything," she assured me. I found Beryl lying helpless and insensible, just as she is now."
"And that was an hour and a half ago?" I remarked.
"Yes."
"But who was this caller? Surely you are able to ascertain that. The servant asked the person in."
"It was a woman, and she asked for my cousin."
"Then you don't actually know that it was the dressmaker?"
"The servant can give no accurate description, except that she was middle-aged, dressed in deep mourning, and wore a veil. She said she was the dressmaker."
"Then the lady escaped from the house without being seen?"
"Yes,"
her ladyship replied.
"No one heard a sound after poor Beryl entered the room. What occurred there no one knows."
"We only know what occurred by the effects," I said. "A desperate attempt was made upon her life. This is no mere fainting fit."
"But who could this mysterious woman have been?" her ladyship exclaimed. "It is absolutely astounding."
A thought flashed across my mind at the moment. Could the visitor in black actually have been that dreaded person, of whom even Tattersett had spoken with bated breath? La Gioia?